Welcome to China Concept Academy. Today I'll be looking at some concepts in finance ranging from simple interest, compound interest, annuities, sinking funds, amortization, perpetuities, and all. Gradually, all of these will get to that. Okay, the first thing I will be looking at today is simple interest. When a trader or a businessman decides to borrow, there's always this amount that you always pay on top of the amount borrowed. I want to borrow 5,000 for a business, and the person is telling me, see, China, for you to borrow this sum of money, you must add 200 on top of it. That amount that you're adding on the initial amount borrowed is what simple interest talks about. Okay, now, what is simple interest? From a layman's definition, it is the amount paid or added on the initial amount borrowed. How do we compute this interest? If you are to compute simple interest, you should always know that most times as a finance student, or I will always tell my finance student that even if you're my friend, I can't give you money just like that. What is the, let's explain some terms before we start taking some questions, the issues of approximate time, the issues of exact times, all of these we'll look at that. Okay, as a finance student or a businessman, you're coming to me to tell me, hey, see, I need money for a particular business. I'm gonna give you the money if I have. But the issue here is you must pay an interest because there are some things that I'm leaving unattended to just to give you that particular sum. Okay, I've explained simple interest to you, and let us take things that are or some variables in this simple interest. Now, remember, if you want to do, you should always remember that simple interest is the principal times in your rate. I always use the bigger times 10 all over 100. Okay, what is the principal? Simple, the principal is that amount you are asking me to borrow. I want to borrow 10,000, the principal is 10,000. Okay, if you're borrowing 10,000 from me, what will you be adding to it? That is the rate of interest, the cost of capital. Then if that is what is it, over how many years are you paying? You're looking at. That's what the time period is. So when has been established, remember, simple interest is the amount that you add on the amount you're borrowing. Now, that is the formula for you to calculate the simple interest. Now, most times, examiner may decide to ask you, okay, if the interest is 200, how much did I now borrow or are you going to pay in total? That is where the questions of amount comes. So, amount is, to calculate amount is the simple interest, we call it the principal, the amount you borrowed, plus your interest. So if my interest in the first calculation is 200, the amount is the initial amount I borrowed plus the interest. Okay, most times the examiner may now decide, okay, giving you the interest, what is now the rate that you borrowed? Or most times the examiner may be like, giving you the time or the interest, sorry, what is now the time? In that scenario, if I want to calculate the rate is equal to the interest the examiner has given to me over the principal times in your time. Or the examiner may not say, if I should give you the interest, what is now the time? Now, if I want to calculate the time period, it is that interest the examiner has given to me over the principal times in your rate. These are the major issues we see in finance world. You want to talk about the principal, that is the amount you borrowed, the interest, and the time. Okay, let's quickly look at this question. The calculations of simple interest. Remember, first thing most is what? Identify the principal. Identify the amount the person is adding and the number of years that the amount will be repaid. Okay, let's look at this question. We'll take one or two, three questions, then we'll look at other issues on this. Okay, the question, as you can see on the screen, is A trader borrowed 100,000 naira from UC Bank at the rate of 2% for 5 years. Question A is, what is simple interest? And question B is, calculate the amount. So, if this is what it is, let us calculate. The question says, a trader borrowed 100,000. So the amount you're borrowing is called the principal. So if I'm borrowing 100,000, 50,000, 20,000, that sum is called the principal. So from this, principal is 100,000 naira. And this person is borrowing this sum at the rate of 2%. The number of years, which is our time period, is 5 years. So if I am calculating my simple interest using this, what is the interest the person is expected to pay on this sum? So the simple interest is going to be, using the formula I have on the board already, principal times your rate and the time period the person is paying. So if I'm substituting it on the board, simple interest is equal to, I borrowed 100,000, I am paying interest of 2%, and I am going to repay this sum in the 5 years or in 5 years time. So simple interest is going to be, your interest is going to be 10,000. Confirm this figure. So it means therefore that whoever that borrows 10,000, 100,000, you're holding this sum for 5 years with 2% interest. At the end, you're supposed to give back, or you're supposed to have paid interest of 10,000. Now, the examiner may likely want to determine, to say, see guy, calculate the amount. I would say amount is that amount I borrowed initially plus the interest. So, amount is equal to the principal plus interest. So this is going to give me, I borrowed initially 100,000 and I am paying interest of 10,000 for after 5 years or 5 years. The amount I am going to have is 110,000. Whichever currency you want to use, fine. Okay, that is the basic of simple interest. So first thing foremost, identify the principal. Identify the number of the years. If this number of years is given to you in weeks, you convert to years. If it's given to you in days, you convert to weeks. Okay, that is it. The next question we'll be looking at a question where this is given in days.